Hello and welcome back to Ask an Agile Coach, the in-person edition. We are together in the same room for the first time. So thanks for being here. I'm joined today by Melissa Boggs, who has a lot of really interesting experience in the Agile space. So Melissa, why don't you start off by introducing yourself, telling us a little about your background.
Amazing. Happy to. Hi, everyone. Melissa Boggs. I have been an Agilist working on 15 years now. Everything from a Scrum Master back in the day to an Enterprise Agile Coach. I did a couple years as the co-CEO and Chief Scrum Master for Scrum Alliance. And now I work with leaders and organizations on Agile ways of working and then some.
And then some. I like it. I like it. So before we get into our really intense topic today, I'm going to ask you just a few questions about coaching in general.
My favorite topic.
Yeah. Okay, so why coaching? Why is that a thing that people should spend their time and energy doing?
Sure. I mean, if you look back to things like sports coaching or, I don't know, I guess that's the most general one that people think of. It's always been about having an objective view of your performance, or an objective view of how you are interacting in the world, maybe is a different way to say it. And so I think coaching can be really beneficial to people when they're looking for this outside perspective, because you get really close to whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah.
Right? We lose our own perspective when we're really deeply invested in something or in the way that we're doing something. And so that coach can provide that perspective.
Great. And so you've coached a lot of different sorts of people, Scrum Master, Enterprise Coach, Leadership Coach, all kinds of things. What's your favorite thing about when you kind of enter the coaching mode?
I think my favorite thing is when, this sounds like such a obvious answer, but when you are able to ask the right questions, again, to help that person gain perspective, and you see a light bulb go off. I feel like this is the most obvious answer that any coach is going to tell you, but it's true. Especially if someone is so close to the answer, but they're just not quite capturing it themselves. Like they can't see it for themselves. It's like there's an apple right in front of you, but there's like a fog between you, right? And if you can help that person lift the fog, and that fog might be representing, a mental block that they have or an experience that they had before that they are sort of projecting right now, but it's not actually happening right now, that type of thing, if you can help them clear that, then those are some of my favorite moments.
Yeah. And I've coached a little bit, not as much as you, but there's also a lot of difficulty, I find, in the coaching stance, in like showing up that way consistently for someone else. So what's maybe something you struggle with, or maybe your least favorite thing about coaching?
I think my least favorite thing about coaching is that you have almost no control. And as someone who in every other aspect of my life is quite A, then B, then C, structured and containerized.
That's a good word, containerized.
Yes, so one of the hardest lessons I had to learn early on is that there's only so much that you can do. You can ask someone all the right questions, but if they're not ready, then, they're not going to take the next step, or lift the fog or whatever it might be. And, that's a difficult thing to swallow if you care a whole lot about that person and their success.
Right.
So, yeah, it's a reality for all of us. It's the same with your children. Not that I'm infantilizing our clients, but, there's only so much you can do.
Yeah. So if somebody's getting coached for the first time and they're not really familiar with how that kind of relationship works, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them to help take the most advantage of their time with a coach?
Sure. I think there's two things. One, I'm sure that their coach would initiate this, but I would encourage them to engage in the coaching agreement. That's actually where they're going to learn a lot about what's going to come out of this relationship. In a coaching agreement, we're talking about, what are our goals in this relationship? What are the boundaries? What is the difference between coaching and therapy? There can be a fine line there. And so, yeah, first step is engaging in that coaching agreement and understanding what that's going to mean for them and what that's going to mean for their coach. Because there are all types of different coaching methods and modes and modalities. So just understanding what you're getting into, first of all. And then secondly, again, this sounds so obvious, but just keeping an open mind. And that's why you're in this relationship with your coach, is to receive their perspective. And so being able to say, oh, yes, okay, I think I see what you're talking about. Defensiveness is not going to help you at all, no matter what type of coaching it is. Even if you're a tennis player, if you're defensive, your coach can't really help you.
Awesome. All right, so we met for coffee before this and started talking about a very interesting topic around coaching and transformation, right? Which is a very interesting word. It comes with a lot of connotations. For some people, it comes with a lot of baggage, but it gets attached to Agile a lot. We have Agile, transformation. Those words go together a lot. And we've both seen them go really well, and we've seen them kind of catch fire and fall off a cliff and plummet to their death. So we wanted to talk about, as coaches, as Agilists, how can we navigate the complexities of this word? Is it the right word? Is it a broken word? And so basically we're going to try to unpack some of that here. So you were talking to me before about when we stopped calling it an Agile transition and we started saying Agile transformation. So maybe let's start there. Like, when did this word show up and why did we start using this word in the first place?
I remember, I can't give you the exact year, but I would say it's, someone's going to fact check me in the comments, I know. But if I had to guess, probably 8 or 9 years ago, maybe a little bit more, that we stopped calling it transition and we started calling it transformation. And I'll be honest, at the time, that felt huge. There was like a weight to that. There was a promise to that. Even for those of us who were Agilists, it was like, oh yeah, like we're really making a difference. We're not just helping someone transition, A to B. We are helping them change everything.
Totally different alphabet.
Right.
Yeah.
And like a different weight and heaviness, responsibility that came with that. Also, there was a little bit of a sense that it was a marketing ploy. Like that we knew that it would, it would get people's attention more. And it does, for sure.
Transformation's attractive, right? That's why we have New Year's resolutions and we want to be a better version of ourselves. And we like that picture of this brighter future that we could get to. It's
Absolutely.
a really appealing thing to say. But it is from caterpillar to butterfly, right? It's a total transformation. You're a different, you fly now instead of like scooch along the ground. It's a big, a big promise. And so sometimes it doesn't work out, right? And for lots and lots of reasons. So why? Like what happens between caterpillar and butterfly that keeps us from getting transformed?
I mean, we've all seen failed transformations. First of all, I want to say I think even that is a misnomer, because even failed transformations often see positive change in individual people who have like changed their mindset, and maybe they go on to a different company and, at that new company they thrive because it's much more agile. So I think that the word transformation is heavy, and then calling it a failure also is like, perhaps the whole company isn't brand new, but we've had some positive change. That said, if you were truly looking to come out a butterfly on the other side of, being in a cocoon, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of unification of your employees and your team and yourself as a leader. And I don't know that we always do a great job of telling them how hard it's going to be.
Yeah. That's not fun to talk about, right? We like to talk about what color your wings are going to be as a butterfly and how great it's going to be to fly around. It's going to be so awesome. But we kind of skip over the fact that you have to do this really messy, hard, painful stuff. Like, we'll just stick with the butterfly metaphor, right? You have to build the cocoon in the first place, which is like a lot of new, difficult kinds of activities. And that's going to feel weird, which is kind of like when you first change your ways of working, right? The first time you have to go to daily stand-up every day or put all your work onto some kind of visualized workflow for the first time, it feels uncomfortable and kind of weird. So you're building the cocoon, but then you've got to go through that, right? You can't skip any of that stuff. And then, of course, we all know the butterfly can't fly if somebody cuts it out of its cocoon. Like, it has to go through the pushing and the work to get out of it. And coaches can't do that for you.
Right? The other thing we can't do for you is say goodbye to the caterpillar. And not everybody is going to be excited about spinning ourselves into the cocoon and saying goodbye to that form. Some people love being caterpillars. Some people love the way that we used to be. And that is also hard, you know, as a person in it, but also as like the leader who is trying to, you know, get us into this cocoon. You've got people that are like, no, I still want to be a caterpillar. And that's something that the coach can help with to a degree. Like, we can have conversations and try to help them see the value in having wings. But there's only so much that we can visualize for them. They don't necessarily, the folks that are really attached to being a caterpillar, I think often they don't see the butterfly coming, they just see the cocoon.
And they maybe are claustrophobic and are like, don't make me go in there.
Right. Don't make me go to stand up every day. Why would I want to? So yeah, it's hard, and I don't think we always share that along with the promise.
Yes. And that's really like why coaching in the agile sense of it exists, because just being able to explain what the cocoon is like isn't enough. You really need somebody to kind of get in it with you and say, okay, we're in it now, and here's how it works. Here's why we're here, and we're going to go through all of the metamorphosis that happens inside the cocoon. And they've already been in the cocoon and out of it, right? And so they can help you understand why you're in here and why it kind of sucks right now, but it's going to be better. But if you just went in there by yourself, you might stay there, or you might go back out as a caterpillar and not like it.
Sure.
So that's why coaching, I think, really matters in this context.
Absolutely. It's a really good analogy.
Right? I really like it. It's working out pretty well.
Right. Like, someone's in the dark with you when it feels really dark. And in every agile transformation, there is a moment when you are in the cocoon and everything feels dark. And having a coach alongside you to say, hey, I know it's dark right now. I know we're all crammed in here like sardines. Suddenly there was like more than one caterpillar in the cocoon.
No, we're going to have to work on that part of the metaphor, but yeah.
But the wings are growing. I, as someone who has been here, can see that our wings are growing. Even though it's dark, like, I can see that they're coming. And that we are going to fight our way out of this cocoon. And that's another step too. Like, hey, we're not done yet. The darkness is not the only hard part.
Right.
We're also going to keep, moving our way out of this cocoon, but there will come a time, And you've had clients who, like, gorgeous butterfly wings, flying in the sky type of situation. So it happens. But I think going all the way back to our original point, we have to be willing to sort of tell the whole story of going through this metamorphosis. Because that is part of the reason that coaching is necessary, but it is also part of our responsibility as coaches to, like, tell the whole story. I think where we have seen a lot of this language or narrative around Agile is dead often has to do with, like, we didn't deliver on a promise, right? Because we didn't share in that promise everything that was going to come with it. Like, here's the baggage that, is going to come with this, but it's still going to be great on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
You risk, if you don't tell that story, people staying in the cocoon, like you said.
Right. And it is, back to what you said about when the terminology changed from transition to transformation, it feels a little bit like a spin, like a marketing ploy. And I think it is easy to just, from a marketing perspective, focus on the butterfly, focus on the end part, because that's the exciting, sexy, it makes good narrative. And when you're trying to talk to a client and convince them to start a journey with you, that's what you want to talk about. And you kind of gloss over the icky bits. But that makes the coaching kind of more challenging if you're showing up and being like, cool, are we ready for the hard work? And you're like, no, I was promised a butterfly.
Nobody told me that.
Right? I did not. That's not in the SOW anywhere, that this is going to hurt and be difficult, right? We leave that language out. And so, yeah, I think it's also expectation setting and realism around what is between the here and there.
Absolutely. And I think we're seeing the word transformation now, being picked up in other industries as well, not necessarily Agile related. And I think that they risk the same sort of path that we have gone down, where I still believe obviously, in the possibility of transformation, right? That any client that we go into, any organization that we go into, whoever it is that we're working with, has the potential to be a beautiful butterfly. But we have seen the path that this can go down if we are not realistic. And it's just interesting to see that coming up in other industries. Right. And, transformation because of this tool. I think also one of the traps that we fall in is Agile is not the goal of your Agile transformation.
Yes.
Transformation is the goal toward your business objectives, and Agile is the way you get there. It is the pattern that you are embracing, the principles that you are embracing. And again, I also see in other industries like X transformation, as if X is your goal. And I think that's another risk that they're running.
Yeah. Marketers have done digital transformations before, right? And so that we can go from this more traditional analog style of marketing to something more modern and digital. But again, the digitalization is not the point. It's the ability to keep pace with customer expectations and to stay competitive in a fast-moving market. That's what we want. We don't necessarily want digital for its own sake, just like we don't necessarily want Agile for its own sake. We want it because it helps us be responsive and adaptive and all of the great business reasons, right? Bottom line revenue, better return on ad spend, whatever it is. But that's what Agile's for. That's the butterfly.
Right.
Right? And so we have to go through all the steps to get there. And that's what these frameworks give us.
And somewhere along the way, we also lost the point that, of the 12 Agile principles, I don't know, 10 of them have to do with people. And, part of this was putting, decision-making back in the hands of the people doing the work. Creating communication patterns and feedback loops between the people doing the work and the customers. And somewhere along the way, that got lost in the transformation, in, story points and sprints and whatnot. And that's part of our mistake too, because the idea at the core of all of it was flexibility, not using this as another weapon to micromanage.
Which again is why coaching, I think, is so important, because you're going to have to guide people through some pretty serious behavior change. Because a lot of people have come through their careers being very successful caterpillars who are micromanaging and looking at everything and dictating the way that the people who report to them get their jobs done. And as soon as you start saying, all right, that worked for you, great, please stop doing all of it, it's really difficult for people to sign up for that sometimes. And so a coach can help them understand how it's a it's a benefit to them, it's a benefit to the organization, but they're probably not going to instantly get there by themselves. And so when people just say, oh, I trained everybody as Scrum Masters, or I had them all read this book, and now we're good to go, we're ready for our Agile transformation, like, it's terrifying. It's terrifying to see those kinds of things happening. And it still happens. Despite the fact that we're 20 plus years into Agile as a thing, people still think, Scrum Master, read a book, maybe watch a video or two here, and like, Agile transformation, check.
Well, I mean, go to a 2-day training, which...
You should get trained. We're not saying you shouldn't get trained.
And I will say, like, when I went to my CSM, and this is not like a paid advertisement, when I went to my CSM, I made incredible connections with people in that class. That class was very, very important. That class did not make me an expert. And as someone who was once affiliated with Scrum Alliance, we never claimed that it made you an expert, right? That is the start of a journey for a person.
For a person. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. For a person, it can create connections. It can, help you see. I actually, as a side note, the thing that I took the most away from my CSM, I had already been practicing Agile ways of working for probably 5 years at that point. It took me a while to get into class. I came away with the notion that, like, I'm not special and our organization is not special, which was actually incredibly comforting. Like, all these things I'm struggling with, 7 other people in the class were struggling with too. But again, that class did not give me the answers to all of that. It was 2 days for something that takes years and years and years of experience with multiple, whether it's multiple orgs or like multiple teams inside your org, to start to see the patterns and to be able to problem solve for those. So back to the coaching, if you are engaging with a coach, I would really encourage you to kind of understand their experience, understand their credentials. And credentials doesn't necessarily mean the letters after their name, but have they been in multiple different situations that they can then take that and pattern match to your situation. I think part of our struggle with the cocoon is sometimes you have people that are not set up for success as a coach because they haven't had the experience to move through the cocoon. Such a good analogy.
Right? Because if they're in the dark for the first time with you, they're going to be like, oh no, I think this might be terrible. But if you've been through it a couple times, you're like, yep, it's dark. We're going to be okay. And they can help kind of talk you down when you are getting stressed out and claustrophobic.
Or if they're in the cocoon with you and they've only been there once, maybe twice, then they might go, here are the boxes that we need to check to get out of the cocoon. As opposed to, like, here's how we need to operate from a principle perspective based on our own context to make our way out of the cocoon. It's a very different perspective than just, let's have stand-ups and let's, have sprint planning type of thing.
Right. Because then if you check all the boxes and the cocoon is still here,
wait,
right, then we all really start panicking because we don't know how to get out.
Exactly.
So yeah, having a coach who has good, solid, contextual, related experience and as much of it as you can get hold of is really important. And it's not fair to anyone to send someone to a 2-day workshop and be like, cool, now go lead this transformation. No one is going to be happy at the end of that. I mean, that's why coaching exists. That's why consultants exist. It's an ecosystem, right? You need a team to help get you through, and it's worth it, right? Butterfly mode is totally worth it, but you have to be able to invest not just monetarily, but people's time and their emotional state, and they have to show up for it, and you got to be ready. This is a butterfly isn't easy.
Agreed. Now I will say, if you have an experienced coach in the cocoon, and you have 2 or 3 people who have been to a 2-day class, incredibly helpful.
Super helpful.
They have context, they have, they know what those boxes are, and then that coach can be like, hey, yeah, well, maybe we check some of those boxes, and there's these other boxes we haven't even thought about yet. So again, we're not saying that, training is not good, and, all of those things are helpful. It just, again, is contextual. And having those people in there in the moment is also great. Just not necessarily expecting them to behave as if they have had 15 years of experience.
All right, I think we might have exhausted the butterfly metaphor, so maybe for now, we'll come back to it. I think there's multiple blog posts in this for sure. Like I'm going with it. I keep thinking of the Hungry Hungry Caterpillar book. We need like the Hungry Hungry Transformation or something.
Oh.
We need to do something with that. So
Stay
tuned. Stay tuned for more. Well, Melissa, this has been fabulous. Thank you so much for being here live together. It's so fun.
In person.
Yay. And thanks for being here, everybody. Join us next time for Ask an Agile Coach.